She called her mom's phone. A stranger picked up, then silence for 15 years. What if the only clue in a missing person case was a voicemail, not a confession, not a goodbye, just a call answered by someone who shouldn't have had the phone? No name, no voice, just breathing, maybe a faint movement. Then the line went dead. That call wasn't from a horror movie, it was real. It happened in 2010 to a 9-year-old girl named Kasia. Her mother, Izabela Zabłocka, had just vanished. No trace, no witnesses, no investigation. And when Kasia reached out desperate to hear her mother's voice, one last time a stranger answered. The police never opened a case. The UK never even listed Izabela as missing until May 2025 when Kasia reopened it herself. And what they found buried in her mother's old garden changed everything. This isn't just a mystery. It's a failure of systems, a cry from a daughter, and a voicemail no one ever explained. Let's go back to the beginning. Izabela Helena Zabłocka was just 30 years old when she vanished. She wasn't famous. She wasn't wealthy. She was a mother, a Polish immigrant, a woman trying to rebuild her life. She'd recently moved to the United Kingdom from Poland and settled in Normanton, a suburb of Derby. Like many new arrivals, she took on hard work cleaning jobs, domestic care, anything to support her daughter Kasia, who was just 9 years old at the time. Neighbors described her as quiet, polite, private, not the kind of person who drew attention. But behind closed doors, something wasn't right. In the summer of 2010, she suddenly stopped contacting friends back home. She missed a planned call with family in Poland. No messages, no updates. Her phone rang, but no one answered. And within days, she was gone, vanished. No official search, no UK investigation, no missing person alerts. Because unbelievably, the missing person report filed in Poland never made it across to UK police. Izabela Zabłocka had fallen between the cracks of two systems, and for 15 years she stayed there, until her daughter decided to bring her back. It was late August 2010. Izabela spoke to her family in Poland for what would become the final time. She sounded normal, calm. There was no sign that anything was wrong. She promised to call again soon. She never did. That same weekend, her phone activity suddenly dropped off. No texts, no social media, no bank use, no sightings. For most people, that would have triggered concern, maybe even a missing person alert. But nothing happened, because Izabela wasn't reported missing in the UK. Her family in Poland did report her disappearance there, but the information never crossed borders. To Derbyshire police, she didn't even exist. Meanwhile, her daughter, Kasia, just 9 years old at the time, was trying desperately to get through. She dialed her mother's number again and again, until one day someone finally picked up. But it wasn't Izabela. It wasn't even someone who explained who they were. It was silence, then a faint sound. Then the line cut. No one ever identified who answered. The phone went completely dead after that. Izabela's voice would never be heard again. And yet, that eerie call, the voicemail from a stranger, would become the very first clue, the only trace, the single thread that 15 years later would unravel the entire case. Kasia didn't know it at the time. She was just a child, 9 years old. But that call, the one where a stranger answered her mother's phone, wasn't just strange. It was wrong. She remembers it clearly. There was no voice, no words, just the sound of someone there, breathing, shifting, listening. And then click, the call ended. Izabela's phone went completely silent after that. For years, that moment haunted Kasia. Who picked up the phone? Why didn't they speak? And most disturbing of all, how did they have her mother's phone? Was it the killer? A bystander who found it? Someone monitoring Izabela even after she vanished? No one looked into it. Because to UK authorities, there was no missing person, no report, no alert, no case file, just a forgotten immigrant, and a daughter who never stopped asking questions. That voicemail would go unheard by police for 15 years. But in May of 2025, when Kasia reopened the case herself, she told investigators everything about the disappearance, about the silence, and about that one chilling call. Within weeks, the entire story would crack open, because somewhere buried under the surface Izabela had been waiting. This is where the case goes from tragic to unforgivable, because Izabela's family did report her missing, back in Poland, not weeks later immediately. They knew something was wrong. They told local authorities. They gave them everything: her name, her UK address, her phone number, the timeline, even the last call. But somehow, none of that ever made it to the United Kingdom. No international alert was issued. No missing person file was created in the UK. Not by Interpol, not by Derbyshire Police, not by any agency. Izabela disappeared in Derby, but officially, she was never missing. And that one failure, whether caused by bureaucratic error, language barriers, or pure negligence, meant no one in Britain was looking for her. No searches, no door-to-door visits, no forensic sweeps. 15 years passed, and no one noticed that a mother, a woman, a human being was gone. And yet, the truth was never buried, because Kasia didn't forget. She grew up with the silence, and in May of 2025, she did what no agency had done in over a decade. She brought her mother's name to the police, and for the first time ever, the investigation began. What came next would shock an entire street. When Derbyshire Police reopened the case in May of 2025, they began with the one place that still held Izabela's name, her old address on Princes Street in Normanton. She had lived there briefly before she vanished. The property had changed hands multiple times since then. New tenants, new paint, new memories, but something beneath it hadn't moved. Less than 2 weeks after Kasia contacted police, ground teams began searching the garden. Cadaver dogs, forensics, deep soil imaging. Then, on a rainy day between May 31st and June 2nd, they found it. Human remains, buried, wrapped, concealed. Exactly where Izabela once lived. Though DNA confirmation was still pending, detectives were already sure. They had found her. 15 years underground. 15 years of silence. Izabela hadn't run away. She hadn't started over. She had been there the whole time, hidden in plain sight. And suddenly, this wasn't just a missing person case. It was a murder investigation. But who would do this? Who knew she was there? And how had 5 different sets of tenants lived in that house without ever knowing? The answers would come fast, because someone had been keeping a secret, and the truth was about to reach a courtroom. On June 3rd, just hours after the remains were recovered from the garden, Derbyshire Police made their move. A 39-year-old woman named Anna Podoworna was arrested. Not questioned, not held for suspicion. Arrested and charged. The charges were serious: murder, preventing a lawful burial, perverting the course of justice. Police believe Anna played a central role in what happened to Izabela. They believe she helped conceal the body. And they believe she lied for 15 years to protect herself or someone else. But she wasn't alone. In total, 5 people have been arrested in connection to the case. 2 women, 2 men, and Anna now formally charged. One of the other suspects had already been questioned in the early days of the reopened case, but was rearrested just before the court date. All 5 were somehow tied to the house, the garden, or Izabela's life in those final weeks. But as of now, only Anna Podawona has been named and brought before a judge. On June 6th, she appeared in court. No plea was entered. No bail was granted. She was remanded in custody to await trial. And the court has made one thing clear. This is no longer an old cold case. It's a live murder investigation. And the silence is finally over. Even with a body found, even with someone charged, even with 5 arrests, the biggest questions in this case still hang in the air like smoke. Who answered Izabela's phone that day? Kasia remembers the moment like it happened yesterday. She was just a child. She heard someone there, someone who didn't speak. Was it the person who killed her mother? Was it someone watching? Someone who picked up out of panic or guilt? Why was Izabela buried in her own garden? It's a bold move, almost careless. Was it rushed? Was it meant as a message? Or did the killer believe that no one would ever come looking? And what about the missing report in Poland? How did an official report filed in 2010 never reach UK police? Was it lost in translation? Ignored? Or was there a deeper breakdown between law enforcement systems? Did people know? Neighbors? Tenants? Visitors? Over 15 years, multiple people lived on Princess Street. Did no one ever notice the disturbed ground, the change in energy, the unspoken silence around that home? And the hardest question of all, why did it take a daughter just 9 years old when her mother vanished to bring justice back to life? We don't have all the answers, but what we do know is this: Kasia never stopped asking. And because of her, the truth finally started to surface. Kasia was only 9 years old when her world broke. She didn't get a funeral. She didn't get a body. She didn't even get answers. All she had was the memory of that final call and the sound of a stranger answering her mother's phone. While the world moved on, while police files gathered dust and people forgot Izabela's name, Kasia held on. She carried that silence through her teenage years, through birthdays, through grief, through the crushing weight of what if. And then, in May of 2025, she made a decision. She contacted Derbyshire police herself. She told them the whole story. She brought the name Izabela Zabłocka back into the system and refused to be ignored. That decision cracked open 15 years of silence in less than 2 weeks. Without Kasia, her mother would still be underground. Without Kasia, Anna Podawona would not be in a courtroom. Without Kasia, this case wouldn't exist. She was just a child, but she became the one voice that cut through all the silence. And now, she's made the world remember her mother's name, Izabela. Ready for the final section. Izabela's remains have been found. 1 woman has been charged. 4 others have been arrested. But make no mistake, this case is far from over. On June 6, 2025, Anna Podawona stood in front of a judge accused of murder. She said nothing, no plea, no explanation. She was remanded in custody awaiting trial at Derby Crown Court. But the investigation is still active. Police are still gathering evidence, still conducting interviews, still trying to understand what happened between July and August of 2010, the window when Izabela vanished. The United Kingdom authorities have also launched a review into how this case was missed, how a woman could disappear on British soil and never be flagged as missing, how a police system could lose track of a life. And then there's the £20,000 reward. It's real, it's active, and it stands until August 27th, 2025. Crime Stoppers wants more information, anything, even anonymous tips. So if you lived near Princess Street back in 2010, if you heard anything, saw anything, or even remember something strange years later, this is your chance to speak. Because what began as a missed call, what began as a little girl dialing her mom's number and hearing a stranger, has now become a full-blown murder trial. And somewhere in this story, maybe in a voicemail, maybe in a memory, lies the final piece of the puzzle.